In today's episode, we're going to talk about some things I learned from Team USA's incredible comeback in the 2019 President's Cup. But first, let's roll the intro. So welcome back to another episode of Knock Stiff Golf. I'm Kyle, and I'm potentially your favorite YouTube golfer from Alaska. Maybe not. Sometimes I like to open up these videos with a little bit of a mail call, and today happens to be one of those days. So let's see what we got. I want to give a big shout out to Ronin Golf Co for hooking me up with some fantastic gloves that I'll be testing out more and more over the next coming months. I was able to try them out in the simulator the last couple of weeks, and I have to say the softness yet also the durability is incredibly unique to these gloves, and I haven't seen a lot like that. They have kind of a reinforced pad in the palm of the hand, which usually is the first place for a lot of people to wear out their gloves, and it seems to be an area that will make this glove last a lot longer. So go check them out. I left a link down below in the description and support a cool little company. And also, if you're new here, go down below, hit the subscribe button if this is the kind of stuff that you're into, and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time I release some new content. Where do I start with the President's Cup? It was absolutely drama-filled. It looked like Team USA was going to get smoked from the very first day, losing 4-1 in the first session, and it was a slow grind back to get to 10-8 leading into the last day's singles. Even Tiger himself mentioned that they could have easily been down 9-1 after day 2. With the way the matches were going, they were able to squeak out some last-minute victories to kind of get it closer, and then after day 3, they were in that 10-8 position. As most of you know with the President's Cup, the winning team needed to get to 15.5 points. So that meant that America was going to have to get 7.5 points of the 12 available points in the singles matches. In typical Team USA fashion, they dominated the singles and were able to pull off the victory 16-14. Now, I could talk about the drama that happened during the President's Cup with Patrick Reed's caddy getting into an altercation with a fan. I could talk about the subtle smack talk that seemed to take place between Tiger and Ernie at some of the conferences. I could talk about how some of the players did some things out on the course that some people thought maybe were unsportsmanlike, or different gestures or different celebrations that some of the players did that could be taken out of context. But what I really want to talk about is what I had picked up as a golfer from watching the President's Cup. I think I narrowed it down to 3 things. First, I'm an awful putter compared to those guys. It was not hard to see them making 6-footers, 12-footers, 15-footers at key moments that it just almost became second nature when they stepped up to a putt inside of 20 feet that it was going in. Yes, they missed some short ones. Yes, they missed the majority of those kind of putts, but there was a way that they were making almost every putt they looked at in key moments that made me feel like I should be spending 8 hours a day putting. That is a big difference between great golfers and really good golfers that aren't making it on tour, is the ability to make clutch putts and make putts in general to shoot those low scores. It's very hard to shoot really low scores without putting lights out. I know this probably seems pretty obvious when you compare an amateur putter to a professional putter. There's a vast difference between my ability to get around a course with relatively few putting mistakes and the ability to look at a 25-footer, a 20-footer, and literally rim those out almost every time if they don't make them. They're not missing by much if they miss at all, and that's a big difference between an amateur player and a professional. And so that's something that kind of brought to mind, is that putting needs to be something that you love and you need to practice and you need to figure out what works for you and find that ability to make very few mistakes on the putting greens. Next, I would say I think I learned these players literally thrive under pressure. There were so many moments coming down the stretch, especially when you're looking at foursomes with alternate shot or with the singles matches, where each one of those matches was a key component to one of the teams winning. Now, you're putting yourself in a, let's just say, a casual round with friends, and you have 3-footers, 2-footers that, you're going to give to your buddies depending on what you're doing. These guys were not giving a ton of putts outside of the leather. And so these putts are we know the knee shakers, the ones that we don't really like to face if we're not feeling good about our putting, because one little mistake and you feel like you wasted a whole shot. So these guys I saw maybe miss a handful the whole tournament. I saw Dustin Johnson miss a short eagle putt, but relatively they make every single putt, especially when it came down to the end where they needed the half point for the match and somebody had to make a 3-footer. They're going to make them putt that every time just for the 1% chance they'll miss it. And those guys made just about every single putt they looked at in that length. I think Justin Thomas said it best at the end when he and Cantlay both drained like 15 or 20 footers to win their matches, to really give America some sort of breath, because they were dying out there if they didn't win those 2 matches. And JT said, those are what we practice for. Those are the situations we want to be in, where everybody is looking at us and we have those opportunities to win those matches or win those tournaments or win those majors. And we want that pressure on us because that's what we've trained for our whole lives. Very few of us have trained for that. We can play for a little bit of money every once in a while, or playing tournaments and kind of get a taste of that. And that's very healthy. But I think at the end of the day, like they do, is you need to practice with pressure. You need to do those drills and give yourself those challenges on the range and even out playing where there is something at stake, even if you're playing by yourself, whether that's a putting contest with yourself, where if you miss something, you have to start all over, or you have to hit so many balls at a target or shot shapes, whatever it may be. But there has to be consequences for not accomplishing that, where you're able to get under those pressure situations where you have a 3-footer to make, or you have to start all over. And so building that up and getting better at that is how we can kind of train ourselves to kind of thrive under pressure. The last thing I think I learned was that these players have very good and very bad memories. What I mean by that is JT and Ricky Fowler blew a 5-up lead in their team match, and they ended up getting a half point on Saturday. And this was something that was unexpected. You had 2 of the top young guns playing phenomenal golf, and they ended up just kind of crashing and burning towards the end. JT hit a bad shot on 18, which forced Ricky to lay up, and then Justin Thomas hit a wedge shot, which you think he would be deadly with, probably 40, 50 feet by, and Ricky Fowler was forced to make that to even get a half to win the match. And so that just didn't happen, and they were upset about it. It almost looked like Justin Thomas was about to cry in the interview after, which I know he's a super competitive person, so it's understandable. But then you see the picture the next day after they win with them holding the cup saying, who blew a 5-up lead match? I don't remember, kind of thing. And so it just shows the mentality of those types of players, where they have a short memory for their losses and a long memory for their wins and their successes. They're going to remember winning the President's Cup as a team event. They're going to remember Justin Thomas playing hot from the start with Tiger Woods. They're going to remember Ricky Fowler playing great and hitting good shots, and they're not going to remember the negatives. It also goes back to like a Jack Nicklaus story that I read in a Bob Rotella book about Jack missing a certain putt in majors, and it goes back to a guy asking him why he missed that putt, and Jack basically said he doesn't remember because it never happened. And when interviewed after, the guy had said, why doesn't Jack just admit it? And somebody said, well, why would you expect Jack to think like you when he's a multiple major winner, multiple tournament winner, and you want him to think like an amateur golfer like yourself? I kind of butchered that story, but it's in Putting Out of Your Mind, I believe, by Bob Rotella, which is a great book to pick up if you haven't already. In a nutshell, I think we can all just take away a couple things from watching the best in the world, both on the international team and Team USA, that putting was such a critical part of that whole tournament that all of us should spend far more time like we know we should putting than anything else. We should also know that in order to have that confidence like they do, where they want the pressure of that 5-foot putt to win a tournament or win a match or whatever it may be, it's going to require us to practice that way for us to thrive under those same situations. So you need to figure out what kind of games, what kind of situations, which will help you build that confidence in yourself, so when stressful situations come up, you can be counted on each and every time. And finally, it's just important to remember to always have a good memory for the things that you've done right and a short memory for things that don't go right in your golf game. You can apply this to different areas of life, but the defeats and the errors that you make in getting better in any aspect of life are there to teach you a lesson, but they're not something for you to dwell on. But the victories and the good things are stuff that you need to store up in your memory bank so that you can always call on them when you're starting to feel doubtful or need that encouragement again. So guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the President's Cup this past weekend. There's a lot of stuff coming up. Christmas is coming. I got a baby on the way. way, so things are changing very quickly, but I'm determined to still continue to put out that content. So guys, if you would go down below, hit the subscribe button if you're really enjoying this content. Leave a comment. Let me know if you learned something new from the President's Cup. If this video struck a chord with you, go down and hit the like button. It really means a lot to me when you do that. I really appreciate you tuning in, guys, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.